Right, Mo, quiz time. So what is the one thing that all runners fear the most during a marathon?
Not getting kudos in Strava?
No.
Not getting that perfect Instagram photo?
No, it's hitting a wall.
Hitting the wall. Yeah, I've been there before. It's not very nice.
There are so many simple things you can do to avoid getting to that point. So we're going to run through your top tips and advice on how to get through the wall and to come out the other side feeling fresh and energized.
Let's go.
Yeah.
So what does hitting the wall actually mean, and what does it look like in your body when it happens?
Well, it's essentially when your body runs out of energy. So although your body can use stored fats and proteins as a source of energy, carbohydrates are its preferred fuel source during intense exercise.
Yeah, carbohydrates are used to produce glucose, which is stored in your body and muscles and liver as glycogen. And when glycogen stores are depleted, your body has to rely on other sources of energy like proteins and fats, which are less of an efficient energy source for energy production.
Yeah, and it kind of feels like you're running into a whole wall of bricks and your legs feel like they're weighted up.
It's most common during a marathon, and that's due to the fact that the fueling options are limited and you're running for an extended period of time. So if you're not sufficiently fueled, hydrated and resting, you could risk crashing both physically and mentally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such a common mistake to make, is to only start fueling when you already feel your energy levels start to dip.
Yeah, it's definitely happened to me before, and that's why the one way around it is to make sure you carb load.
Okay, stop. Let me talk to you about carb loading. So, research suggests you start increasing your carbohydrate intake from around 48 to 72 hours before your race. There's varying levels of research on exactly how much we can consume, but the general consensus is around 5 to 12 grams per kilo per body weight per day, with many recommending 10 grams per kilo per day. And it's good to know that the average person can store around 600 grams of glycogen, with 500 grams of this in the muscles and 100 grams of this in the liver, but obviously this depends on lots of things like your body weight.
Jess, my brain's just hit a wall.
Right, let's give an example. So, the average woman in the UK weighs 72 kilos, and based on the recommendation of 10 grams per kilo of body weight of carbohydrates during that carb loading phase, using rice as an example, so 72 times 10 is 720 grams of rice, and that's not even 100% carbohydrates, so that's well over a kilo of rice that you'd need to eat.
That is insane. That's
Yeah,
a lot
crazy.
of rice. But I think we should bear in mind that these studies are based on elite men. That's where the research has come from. And I don't think it's easy or even realistic for us to eat that much rice or carbs. I don't think you can eat that much rice, Jess. So I do think a more realistic approach would be to reduce your protein and fat intake by a little bit and just increase your regular carbohydrate intake as you carb load.
And if you want to learn more about the facts and figures, then click on this article here written by our amazing writer, Mark.
Well, actually, Jess, I've got some more science up my sleeve, but it's a bit too much science to do in the park. So should we go to the lab?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, we're in the lab and it's time for some science. Jess, this bucket represents the current energy stored in your body. And this line here represents the glycogen levels that are stored in your body, in your muscles and your liver, right?
Yeah, I think so.
This here, these are carbohydrates. 48 to 72 hours out, we want to top up our body's carbohydrates to its max capacity. That's going to be represented by that line right there. Still following?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, well, put on your goggles because I'm going to show you a demonstration. I need you to do me a favor and pick up that drill actually.
Yes. Oh, gosh.
Okay, Jess, I'm just going to ask you to drill a hole into this bucket for me.
Woo!
In just a second. We are going to lose the water from this bucket, and that's going to represent our depletion of glycogen stores in our body. However, I'm going to top them up with fuel.
Got it. So that's things like these.
Things like that, exactly.
Nice.
We're going to represent that with the, with the water here. So if you can, just drill the hole for me. I'm going to pop this on the side. Drill right there. Okay, quickly. As that's coming out, as you can see, this is exercise, how it's dripping out of our bodies, and we are going to top it up with this. So once we see our fuel is leaving, but we're topping up our fuel right now, so we're not going to ever drop below a specific point, which means we are not going to hit the wall. Makes sense?
Yeah. Love that. Why didn't you say it in the first place? That's so much simpler.
It's a lot easier with a visual
Yeah.
representation. However, yes, I am glad that this isn't dripping on me. Hopefully it drips. But should we just get out the lab and back into the park?
Yeah, I reckon
Let's do
let's go
some
on a
running.
run.
Yeah, someone else can clean this up.
Right, so we're back in the park, back on a run, and something I've learned in the past is that you can't just take on an energy or a chew when you're starting to feel slightly fatigued. It has to be timed right.
And there are so many options available, and the impact that they have on your body will vary from person to person. So it's really important to practice your fueling strategy during your long runs so you can work out what works best for you.
So what's your fueling strategy for during a marathon?
I tend to have like a banana at the start line, and then I'll go like 5 or 6 gels throughout, probably every 20 or 30 minutes. What about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty similar. So I'll have like an energy chew on the start line, and then generally every 7 kilometers, but 5 to 7 towards the end.
Yeah, It's typically recommended that you take around 40 to 80 grams of carbohydrates per hour. So different types of gels will have different amounts. This one has 22 grams, for example, and this one has about 40 grams. So make sure you do practice with your gels before to see what's right for you and then stick to it.
Yeah, and something I was thinking about recently actually was that not everyone can take on energy gels and choose like you and me, Mo. So some energy gels contain caffeine, for example, so if you're pregnant or have a caffeine intolerance, then make sure you check all the ingredients and nutrients of the gels before you take them.
Couldn't agree more, Jess, but let us know, what's your fueling strategy? Put it down in the comments below, and while you're down there, just leave a little tip for your fellow community members.
Something else that's really important to consider is your hydration. So even if it's not hot, there's still a risk of becoming dehydrated.
Everyone sweats a different amount and loses different amounts of electrolytes, and there are many variables including a person's gender, weight, effort level, and the conditions they're running in.
You should aim to drink at least 300 ml per hour and increase that to 500 to 750 ml if you're a heavy sweater or able to consume more while running.
But the question is, how do you do this while running?
Yeah, in a race, I would always look for the water stations and make sure you check ahead of the race where they're going to be so you can look out for them.
Yep. I think for me, I try and get exactly the same water stations and then probably take some salt sticks with me as well, so I can have them while I'm running to make sure that I'm not just re-upping my fluids, but also my electrolytes as well.
Yeah, and it also, you could, in some races, take a hydration vest. I definitely do that on a lot of my long runs, is to make sure I stay hydrated. Sometimes even putting electrolytes in my water bottles.
Drink a little often. Don't wait until you feel thirsty, as that may mean you're already dehydrated. The important thing to remember is that refueling and rehydrating isn't instantaneous.
If you're on a long run, you can also look out for a... Oh!
I think she was about to say water fountain. Right, we hope this video has given you all the tips and tricks we have to avoid hitting that dreaded wall.
Yeah, and remember, if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. And if you like this video and you're training for your very own marathon, then go check out where I attempted sub 3 hours in Berlin.